Montgomery Community Media presents Small Business Network, brought to you by M&T Bank. SBN is also sponsored by Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation and Leadership Montgomery.
Hello and welcome to the Small Business Network presented by M&T Bank. My name is Kelly Leonard. Every month we have the opportunity to bring the business community together to network, to collaborate, and to share best practices in order to stimulate regional economic development. Thank you for joining us on the live stream as well as here in the television studio. Today we have an exciting topic. We're going to be exploring the 4 stages or secrets, if you will, for millionaire entrepreneurs that are not taught in school. And joining us is Anik Singal. And before I jump into questions, I want to just give you a little background about Anik because you will be extremely impressed. Anik is the founder and CEO of Lurn, Inc. He's considered one of today's most credible entrepreneurship experts. Through his knowledge in digital marketing, lead generation, and sales conversion, Anik has trained over 1 million entrepreneurs worldwide and generated over $200 million in online sales. And he did all of this by the age of 35. Mind-blowing. Business Week recognized Anik in the top 3 of the best young entrepreneurs in the U.S. He has been named an Inc. 500 CEO 2 times for his fast growth in his main venture, which is Lurn, Inc. He's a best-selling author, an entrepreneur, and a philanthropist. He and his wife had built over 10 schools around the world for underprivileged children. Anik believes in that the cure to poverty is actually in the power of entrepreneurship. His company has currently microfunded over 200 successful businesses in East Africa. Amazing. Welcome, Anik.
Thank you so much.
I got exhausted just reading your bio. And I'm thinking, and I had a milestone birthday this year, and so I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is incredible. Like by 35.
I've been busy.
Yeah, you have been busy. But the question that immediately comes to my mind, for all of the success that you had and all the wonderful things that you're doing, why Montgomery County? Like what caused you and your wife to kind of plant and then establish this amazing new facility in Montgomery County?
Brutal loyalty. That's all.
Wow.
Born here, brought up here, and so when it was time to do something for entrepreneurs, Montgomery County was the place I wanted to stay here, and I wanted to really help the entrepreneurs locally here, but I also wanted to bring international attention to our area, you know, to help make us the entrepreneurial capital of the world if we can.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an awesome vision and task ahead of you. So I have to ask, if you were born here, raised here, where'd you go to high school?
Gaithersburg High School, go Trojans. Yes, loved it.
So shout out to the Trojans.
Yes.
Good deal, good deal. And I love the fact that you came back here because, you know, with you being in that online space, so many people would have packed up and headed west because you hear about Silicon Valley and all the great things there. And so I applaud you for coming back here because you did leave for a little while, right?
Didn't leave. We thought about leaving.
Okay.
So with a fully virtual company, it is easy to kind of go wherever you want. Yes. So before we were going to plant our first center and build an actual entrepreneurship training center, my wife and I did a little, virtual touring of the country to see where we wanted to go, and it just nothing beat being here, being by family, being in an area that I grew up in. So it wasn't enough, and I personally think you can teach entrepreneurship anywhere. I don't think you need to be in Silicon Valley to be an entrepreneur. So
very true. Yeah. Now, to that point, however, entrepreneurship is something that is easily taught, but it's not necessarily easily sustainable. Yeah. And you've got such, amazing statistics. What is it, like 95% of entrepreneurial ventures fail? Why do you think that is? Why do so many ventures fail?
Yeah, well, it's not even our statistics. 80% fail within the first 18 months. Wow. And then if you go out 5 years, usually it's above 90% that have failed by that point. So when you do the research and you look at the stats, right? So they'll give you the answers of usual, ran out of funding, Walmart moved in, competition. And so for the longest time, I believed it. I bought that answer. Now, the more that we've been teaching and training entrepreneurs, so over 1 million people that we've worked with all over the world, 53% of our students are international. They're not even, so we get the full walk of life. We get to meet all different kinds of people. And then we get to see the ones that are succeeding, and we get to see the ones that are not. So here we are, we're providing the same coaching, same training, same guidance, same tools, same everything, And we've got some that make it, some that don't. And that question just plagued me for so long until I started to realize it doesn't have anything to do with running out of capital, competition, product selection. It's really here. It starts with you first. So most businesses are failing because the entrepreneur was never set up to be an entrepreneur. Where's the class in school when you're growing up? When does a teacher say, you want to be an entrepreneur? Great, you should go through this class and that class. No, we're just not taught. And the skill sets, the mindset, the requirements, the demands of an entrepreneur are so vastly different than even the highest of leaders in existing companies. And so the problem actually starts not with the business, the model, the funding, the financing. It starts with the entrepreneur that's behind it. And ever since we figured that out, our trainings have changed. We've done more core training around the mindset, around the characteristics, the behavior traits, the day-to-day of an entrepreneur, and the success rate from our students has gone up significantly. So I think most businesses fail because the entrepreneur thinks it's, let me get some money, I have an idea, let me build a business. It's way more than that. You have to go through a bit of a shift yourself.
Wow, gotcha. And so when we think about entrepreneurship in general and we see new companies popping up moment by moment, it would give one the impression that it's easier now than ever before to become an entrepreneur. Is that a facade, or is that true? What do you find?
I think it's true. Okay. It is definitely easier to become an entrepreneur today. It doesn't change that the success rate has not gone up that much, right? The percentages have stayed the same. Here's why it's easier. We have the internet. In the past, 20 years ago, if you want to start a company, you want to start a business, you have to have funding. You have to have the money to set up a physical shop, buy inventory. There's no way around that. Today, with how we've become a global economy. So if I want to start a company, I did. From my dorm room, I had someone helping me who lived in Canada, in the Philippines, in India, and they were helping me at cost that I could actually afford. I didn't have to have an office. I had a virtual digital product. So all of these kinds of mechanics have totally made it easier to become an entrepreneur. Now, I wouldn't say it's become easier to succeed as an entrepreneur.
Right.
That remains the same because the entrepreneur themselves still have to go through the same structural changes and characteristic changes. But yes, today, if you want to make the break, right, or as I say in my next coming book, escape. If you want to make that, if you want to escape, it is simpler. There's a lot more opportunity today, a lot more opportunity than there was 20 or 30 years ago. So in that regard, yes, it's easier.
Now, I don't want to gloss over one of the things that you said because as I gaze the studio, I see a number of students in the room. You mentioned from your dorm room. So is that essentially how you started, and do you see more students, the opportunity presenting itself to get started earlier?
Absolutely, that is where I started. So in high school, I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, changed my life. But I didn't actually jump into entrepreneurship. So I went to, I started at UMBC, and I wanted to be a doctor, right? So I'm studying bio and biochem, and within a few months, that's not for me. I'm Indian, so I thought doctor, yay, that's what I gotta be. But within a few months, realized not at all. So I switched over to College Park after 2 years and started studying business. And again, I was still just as miserable. So I realized it wasn't about what I was studying. It was about the fact that I just wanted to go and do. I wanted to go do something. So I didn't have any money, so I turned to the internet, started Googling around. Google said, I filled in, how to make money, and then Google filled in the word online. I thought, okay, sure. Clicked on that, and next thing, it was a big journey, 18 months of massive struggle, trying to figure things out, weeding my way through the little scams, and but I eventually prevailed at where I found a system, I found something. So for me today, you said, do I see more college students? Yes, absolutely. More college students are launching businesses, but now we're seeing high school students. One of my star students right now that I love this kid. He's 12 years old.
Wow.
And he is. Summer for him. What do you want to do this summer? I want to build my business. It's like,
nice.
Wow. That's awesome. So yeah, younger and younger, because again, the tools are there, right? And it's becoming simpler.
Gotcha. So what about this whole notion of, and I know some of these questions I'm throwing him, he's like, wait, we didn't discuss that question.
It's all good. Go
bloody in your nose, right? We hear this term, you got to bloody your nose a certain number of times in order to really get to your winning opportunity. Do you know if there's like an average of, hey, by the time you go through 2 to 3 ventures, that fourth one is going to be, or what did you find in your own personal journey?
Bloody nose, bloody lip, bloody eyes, bloody ears. I mean, you name it.
Right.
I don't think there's a number, right? There's a lot of people that will hit it right with the first one. I didn't. In that first 18 months, I must have failed over 50 times.
Wow.
Right? But I was, every week I was trying something different and I was making little tweaks. I don't think there's a number. I think that there are some core principles. So when you're out there doing something and you fail or you make a mistake or something bad happens, why? Can you answer what went wrong? Because if you can't find the silver lining in it, you're going to do it again. Right? So those who finally do succeed, it's a staircase. A lot of people come and look at entrepreneurship. A lot of my friends will say this thing to me, and this is like the worst thing you can say to me. You're lucky. I get chills even thinking about it. I'm not lucky. Right. I'm up till 3 in the morning. I'm up again at 6 in the morning. I go through major hardships. I've been 1.7 million in debt. I've been 26, 27 years old and hiding from phone calls, and I climbed out of that through absolute grit, hard work, and perseverance. That's not luck. So but with every single thing I do, and I teach my students all the time, we fail every day. I fail every day, multiple times, probably 10 times more than I succeed. But with each one, I look for what did I learn and what will I never do again? Right. And with that, you start to see my success ratio go up because I'm improving. So there's no particular number, but an entrepreneur, a lot of people, they suffer some losses or they suffer some hardships, I should say, in their first venture, and that's enough to discourage them. Right. If that really keeps you up at night and you just can't digest it, it's okay. But then entrepreneurship in its traditional sense of starting your own company, it's not for you. Yeah. Because you'll go through that all the time.
Now, what about this whole notion? Because I think as a society, we're raising a generation of this perception of, oh, everyone's a winner. You're not, no, everyone's a winner. Everybody gets a trophy. So are we doing a disservice? Because to your point, you're from the way that you talk about failure, it sounds like failure is perhaps a good thing because it's at least taking you down a pathway to help you to then identify what works. So what are your thoughts on that whole everybody gets a trophy notion?
All right, so safe space here to say what I really feel.
What happens at MCM stays at MCM.
Only gets broadcasted everywhere. I can't stand it. I mean, the whole notion of, my nephew, who I love to death, he got very upset. We were playing a game, and I'm not gonna go easy just because you're 6. I'm gonna give it all I got, and he gets really upset when he loses. And I'm like, get better. Right. And that's probably just how my dad was with me. Right. But I find it inspires me to be better. And so I look at that and I wonder what's going on in school, what he's being taught that makes him so entitled to win just because he participated. Right. And I don't think that that's a service to kids. I don't think that's a service to us. I don't think that's a service to society, human life. Because we're going to stop excelling. We're going to stop innovating. Unless we are challenged, unless there is a reason to win, unless you are out there trying to achieve goals, achieve dreams, and there's a difference between something not working and something working. I think the problem is that people feel so bad when something doesn't work. I feel bad too, but I feel hopeful because I realize here's something that didn't work. Now let me do the next thing until I make it work. It's just a different perspective.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So I've heard you mention this notion of a new entrepreneur, there's a new entrepreneur coming up. And so how would you tell me more about this new entrepreneur that you envision? Yeah,
so it's not even me. It's not my vision. I wish it was. It started in Silicon Valley actually years ago. So I'm sure a lot of people in this room have a Google email. How many people have a Google email address? Yeah, that was a result of what we call entrepreneurship. There was an individual at Google was given tons of freedom, a team, a budget. He actually had this idea and went out and created it within the infrastructure of a parent company. Right. Sony PlayStation was invented by an employee at Sony who took it upon himself to innovate on top of the Nintendo system. Lots of the greatest products that we use are created through entrepreneurship, which means there are now individuals within the larger infrastructure that are being given freedom by these companies and budgets and teams that they can lead. And that's powerful because it removes a lot of aspects of entrepreneurship that are tough for people. and it adds that little bit of security back in, but allows you to innovate, allows you to still function as what we would consider an entrepreneur and have that freedom. And it's a budding concept right now. Some of the greatest successes and innovations coming into this world are coming from entrepreneurship, and some of the biggest companies, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Yahoo, all of these companies are deploying, Amazon, are deploying entrepreneurship. So there's a huge opportunity there.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that as well, because when you think about it, employers are they want a workforce of problem solvers. And all an entrepreneur is someone who sees a gap and fills it, right?
Yeah.
And so what employee can't do that? Everyone, I think, is positioned to do that. Yeah. Awesome. So as we start winding down our portion of the conversation, there's this whole notion of these 4 stages or secrets of a millionaire entrepreneur that students don't learn in school, that's not taught in school. I'd like for you to enlighten us with those stages.
So I spent years trying to figure this out, right? Because like I said, one of the things that just plagued me was, why do we have some students that are just absolutely doing great and some that are not? So I created this acronym as I went through it, and I did a lot of introspection on myself. My good days, my bad days. I did research on some of the most talked about entrepreneurs in the world that have changed the face of humanity, and I started to find consistent trends, and it led right to an acronym that I call ESCAPE, right? So ESCAPE, how to go from employee to entrepreneur, so E to E, and there's the 4 acronyms, the 4 letters in between, SCAP, and it just so happens that those 4 letters really represent 4 things that are never taught to us, that happen to be near and dear to what creates entrepreneurial success. So first is self, right? That's the foundation. It's the concrete of your home. How do you think about money? What are your beliefs about wealth? What are your beliefs about hard work? There's paradigms involved. There's certain amounts of, for example, do you read books? Do you take courses? Do you take classes? Do you go out of your way to improve yourself? There's certain characteristics you have to build. Now, we're not taught these things in school. Right? We're not taught what's a paradigm. We're not taught how to develop our own feelings and thoughts and beliefs about wealth, about money, about, many people grow up thinking being rich is evil.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Well, if you're going to do that and then you want to go become wealthy, you've got a problem right from day one.
Yeah.
Number 2, we move right in. So I really look at these as kind of steps. So you go from self, which is S, to C, which is catapult. And really what I mean by catapult is creating momentum. This is another big thing that we see with our students who are struggling, is that they want to take the elevator or they want to take the escalator, right? I want to go from bam to bam. Like I'm here, I want to be a millionaire. Let's do it, right? And I want the big win. I want to win the lottery. Versus I'm going to take my big goal, break it down into smaller, goals, and create momentum. So one of the things that we'll do with entrepreneurs or students who come to me who are struggling the most, they're down and out. I will literally say something even as funny as, what would you love to eat right now? Like, what's one food that you would love? And they're like, oh, I'd love a burger. Great. Get your keys, get in your car, go get yourself a burger and come back and we'll continue the talk. And they're like, what? I said, let's get the small wins. Let's get momentum going. You want something, you go, you make it happen, you come back, you get to build off of that now. Let's turn the negative momentum going on in your business and let's turn it around. It's going to be one tiny thing at a time. So that's catapult. If you master momentum, you can actually create some pretty big things. And you move from there right into one of my personal favorites, which is truly not taught in school, is authority. Authority, which really is leadership. Right? In school, we have class leaders. Well, you have 40 kids in a class and 1 class leader. Right? You have teams. So students play sports. 60 people on a team, 1 captain. So the odds of you actually getting a chance to lead, to develop those skills, are drastically against you, especially if you're a little shy or a little reserved. Others will always take those opportunities. I was one of the ones that would always take them. I would always step up, right? So is it too late? No, it's never too late to still refine these skills. So we go over some of the core characteristics of really establishing authority, because if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be able to establish authority, whether it be over your team, over your idea, or over your customers. You have to be able to, if you're going to drive customers to buy from you, it's because you have some authority in that topic.
Right.
And then last but not least, this is the most difficult and the most influential, is P, people. What's your environment? Who are the people around you? What are you, are you surrounding yourself with the people that can actually excel you and move you up? So in that, we talk a lot about the influence that mentors have had on me and on every successful entrepreneur, the environments that we build, choice, right? So what I choose to do. I mean, when I went to University of Maryland, College Park, I never went to one basketball game or one football game. Not one. I went to my first basketball game 3 years after graduating. And people, and all my friends were going, well, it was choice. Those 3 hours I'll never get back. What do I do with these 3 hours? Right. So I invested them in myself rather than in cheering our basketball team. So we talk a lot about how you build that environment, and that's peace. So these are the 4 things that I truly wish we could learn in school from day one and master. That way, when we wanted to become an entrepreneur, we would be far, far, far more prepared, and it wouldn't just be about funding, idea, and the mechanics or the tactics. There'd be a lot more deeper knowledge there.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of
so I'm
course.
going to open up the floor. If you have a question, please come to the microphone. Do not be shy. To your point on the last, you guys can come up, and I'm going to keep talking. To your last point, you know, it's so associations are so powerful. I'll never forget a mentor of mine. You know, if you're always the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Wrong room.
If you hang around 9 broke friends, you're bound to be the 10th one. So things like that, where it's like those associations are so impactful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Awesome.
So hi, Anik. I'm Judy Stevenson. I'm with Montgomery County Government. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for having your business here and staying here. It's a wonderful testimony to the fact that Montgomery County is a great place. The question I have is, historically, Montgomery County's been a government town, right? Most of our people historically have worked either for the government or as contractors for the government. Because of that, we've kind of had a reputation for not being entrepreneurial. So my question for you is, what does Montgomery County, the business community here, the government here, what do we need to do to create that ecosystem that will grow the entrepreneurial side?
Embrace our Learn Center. All of your, no.
Set you up for that, didn't I?
It's to offer. I was very excited before the session started to hear that there was a social media class being offered, you know, and so I asked you questions about that. It's to make more, entrepreneurs are lacking community, and that's why we built what we built. They're lacking the ability to get in a room just like this and just hang out and talk. Every other profession has that. They have associations, they have conventions and conferences and meetings. So I think as a county, if we would provide more ability for funding and resources for them to start the business, but I still think that's not going to be it. I think just more events, more putting people in one room is actually going to make other entrepreneurs in other counties want to come to the county because of that connection that they have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Laurie Wiggins. I'm CEO of Beyond. The studies that I see, while there's a lot of focus in the press on younger entrepreneurs, there's also a large body of older entrepreneurs. Those in their 50s that have spent years in corporate America or working for others, they've gotten a lot of expertise and they go, I think I want to do something else. And I was wondering if you have any advice specifically for the older entrepreneur, if you work with them and so forth. Sure. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so there's the good and the bad of that, right? So first of all, you're right. There's actually there's data out there showing how fast the entrepreneurship rate amongst those above about 40 or 45 is growing because of how disgruntled they've become with corporate America and just having a job. Yep. The problem is you've also been in that environment for 20, 30 years. So you've built certain habits and core ways of functioning that make it more difficult to just quickly adapt. So someone who's making that transition, I would say spend literally 2 to 3 times the amount of time learning and leadership, going through entrepreneurship classes, and you have to learn to think different. You have to learn to literally, I mean, you go through 20, 30 years of being in a job, you are probably the most systematic, procedural, by the document, this is step 1, step 2, and when you become an entrepreneur, you gotta throw all that into the trash, right? My favorite story is my mentor was starting a company, asked me to help him shift through resumes. He was looking for some people to help lead the new venture. Told me, pull all the MBAs and pull them out into this pile next to me. I said, oh great, you're looking for the MBAs. I just pulled them all out. When I was done, he took them and he just threw them right in the trash.
Wow.
He didn't want to deal with the MBAs. And I said, why? He said, not in startups. We don't have time for all that procedures and policies. We need to just move. And so I really find that generation just needs to really accept and do some self-work to understand, okay, what I'm doing is so different on a day-to-day basis on a psychological basis than what I've been trained to do. So I need to step out, relearn, and then step back in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. But yeah, to your point, it's you've got to unlearn what you've been doing all that time.
Or relearn.
Right.
These things, yeah.
Hello, Bill Carbaugh. I'm with Guardian Realty. On a day-to-day basis, I have to make decisions on whether to lease to many entrepreneurs. What are the 3 or 4 key things that I should look at to see whether I think they're going to be successful so we both win?
That's a great question.
That is.
So I will tell you that one of the key things I think is their resilience. If you can find times that they've been down, times where they've had struggles, and come out of it. So for example, for me, I've been 1.7 million in debt when I was 26, 27 years old. I've owed absolutely everybody money, including my dad's home being mortgaged. I came out of that in 16 months. There's a core ability there that when I talk to banks, that's the first thing I tell them. You know, you would say, why would you tell a bank that you've been in debt before? Because I want them to understand that I've been there, I've been through the bad already, I understand how it goes. I would also really look at their team, because a great entrepreneur will build a very impressive surrounding around themselves. So if you're dealing with their assistant, booking appointments, if you're dealing with someone on their marketing team or tech team, how good are they? How on top of things are they? Because no entrepreneur can do it alone. And a great entrepreneur, a great leader, builds an amazing team around them. That's how they evaluate themselves based on that. The last but not least is how new are they to it? Really, it's just if, for example, if they've been in corporate for 30 years, but they got fed up, they had saved a lot of money, decided to go into business, that in and of itself is not going to be enough confidence. But have they been doing this for 5 years? Have they been an entrepreneur before? Have they been through multiple ventures? Because the old saying, you know, how you do one thing, you know, you do all things. And I think that if you have an entrepreneur who has had past success, has sold companies, they're going to sell another company. It's just they're going to repeat that cycle. So history, I think, is a big driver, is what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Anik. As we wrap up the Small Business Network, I definitely want to thank Anik. Thank you all for joining us on the live stream as well as here in the television studio. We look forward to seeing you at next month's Small Business Network, July 19th, and it will be a panel discussion on how to accelerate small business growth through mergers and acquisition, which is sort of a different twist because we don't typically think of growth through mergers and acquisition in the small business space. So we're excited to bring that conversation to you next month. Again, we look forward to having you either in the television studio or on the live stream. So until then, we wish you continued success in your business. We'll see you next month.